Hi, I'm Jamie Lewis and welcome back to the Bassist.net. Today I am so excited to share this product review video with you because, believe it or not, it actually involves robots. And no, I'm not talking about the kinds of robots that are secretly listening to all of our conversations and plotting out the best methods for enslaving and eventually eradicating all of humanity.
You'll never see it coming.
I'm talking about the most helpful robot that any bass player could possibly imagine. The kind of robot that longs to accomplish one single goal. And that goal is to tune your bass for you. So don't go anywhere. I guarantee you're going to want to see what this thing can do. Now, all joking aside, I really am impressed with even just the idea of this thing. It's called the Roadie Bass Tuner, and it literally tunes your bass for you. Now, I can't believe that I've lived long enough to see the 21st century and all of its glorious gadgets and technologies. And even though we don't have hoverboards yet, or self-drying clothes, or self-lacing shoes, well, at least we have self-tuning basses. Well, kinda. I'll show you what I mean. This is the Roadie Bass Tuner, and it really is a marvel of modern technology. You can see that it charges via USB-C, and it comes with its own charging cable. Weighing it at only 6 ounces and roughly the size of your palm, this is an automatic bass tuner that is capable of tuning string gauges up to 0.140 and detecting frequencies from 27.5 to 880 hertz. So to tune your bass, all you have to do is go to your instrument list, select a specific instrument or tuning from the list, place the Roadie Bass Tuner on the lowest tuning peg, and then strike the corresponding string. The Roadie Bass Tuner does all of the tuning for you, and it beeps when you're good to move on to the next string. You can also access features like alternate tunings, like going from standard to drop D or even half-step tuning. And to turn it off, all you have to do is hold down the center button again. That's pretty much it. So I just figured the best thing to do here would be to put this thing through its paces and see how it stacks up. So let's start with speed. How long does the Roadie Bass Tuner take to tune up a 5-string bass? And is it faster than using a conventional tuner? Well, in this case, you can see that I'm tuning the same bass twice, which, by the way, is the Jamie Lewis signature Torillo 5-string bass. On the left, I'm tuning the old grandpa way, staring down at the floor with a Peterson Classic Strobo tuner. And on the right, you can see that I look like just another lazy, entitled millennial, relying on technology to do everything for me in hopes that someone else will pay off my student loans. And as you can see, these two clips have been playing side by side in real time all along. And the winner for fastest tuning goes to the grandpa method. So in this extremely accurate scientific experiment, we saw that the Roadie Bass Tuner took about 30 seconds to tune my 5-string bass, whereas I was able to do it by hand in about 20 seconds. And that's perfectly understandable. I mean, if you think about it, I got to do this left-handed. I've got to get it to sit into the peg just right, and then, pluck the string, hold it in place while it's doing its thing, and then repeat the process on another string. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time to do that. So is it fast? Well, I'd say so. I mean, 30 seconds isn't that bad, and actually, that's the exact time that's advertised on their website. But is it faster? Well, according to my experiment, which, by the way, I repeated 3 times just to make sure, the answer is no. Now, I could definitely see this thing saving you some time if you were a guitar tech, or imagine like you're sitting side stage with one of those guitar vaults that's got like 10 or 15 guitars and basses in it. I mean, you could literally just leave it in the case, put it on the tuning peg and plug the string, go to the next one, go to the next instrument, like just like assembly line tuning. So in that scenario, I could definitely see this being faster. Now, how about accuracy? Is the Roadie Bass Tuner just as accurate as other tuners on the market? This is my M-Bass's MJ4. It's a standard 4-string bass strung E through G with nickel wound strings gauges 45 to 105. Looks like the Roadie Bass Tuner handled the E string no problem. Let's try out the A string next. No issues here, nice and accurate according to the Peterson. Let's try a different bass. This time, my 5-string M bass's MEJ5. Looks like the Peterson is telling me that the B is still a little bit under, but it is close. That E string looks pretty good too. Now, I was curious as to whether or not the string types would make any sort of difference. Both of the other basses that we checked out had nickel wound strings, so here's a P bass with flats. The Roadie Bass Tuner does seem to be having trouble finding the E, but it looks like it finally found it, even though it is a little bit sharp. Here it seems to be going way past the note A and into the B territory. And upon inspecting the Roadie Bass Tuner, I noticed that I had accidentally touched the dial and sent it to the note D instead. So that is something to be careful of. Now, I wasn't sure if it was the flats on the P bass that threw things off or the fact that it has reverse tuners on it. So to rule out anything, I tried another bass with flat wound strings. This one is a 4-string jazz bass. It does seem to be taking longer to tune than with the nickel wound strings, but it is tuning accurately. Okay, last one. This is my fretless carbon 5-string Icon bass. It seemed to handle that B string just fine, but it looks like the E still has a little ways to go on the Peterson. And the A string seems to be doing the same as well. So let's draw some conclusions here based on what you just saw. It handled my 4- and 5-string bass just fine, as long as the strings were made out of nickel or steel. The Roadie Tuner did not like my flat wound strings, my nylon strings, or the reverse tuners nearly as much. That's not to say that it didn't work, it just took longer and it also wasn't as accurate. Okay, so here's one that I'm sure you've been thinking about, and that's, well, what about noisy environments, like on stage, or the side of the stage, or even just at band rehearsal while everyone's making noise while you're trying to tune? I love clip-on tuners. Actually, I have one on just about every bass that I own. But they are notorious for not functioning very well when you're on stage and when you're in a really loud environment, especially with the lower strings. So what I want to know is, can the Roadie Bass Tuner still do its job in one of these scenarios? Well, unfortunately, I didn't have any gigs or rehearsals during the couple days that I filmed this video. So I'll try to do the next best thing and simulate that kind of scenario by playing some really, really loud music out of this floor wedge here and tune my bass right in front of it. Do not try this at home, okay? I'm gonna be wearing some very expensive ear protection. If you get this close to a loudspeaker, you will suffer from hearing damage. Okay, so here we go. I'm right in front of the speaker. I'm just gonna press play and I'm gonna try to tune my bass using this thing. Here we go. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working at all, but I am literally like 6 inches away from this thing. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull the volume back a little bit, and I'm gonna scoot this away, and then let's see how it goes. All right, so here's what I found. It definitely did not work when I was right in front of the speaker, which, well, duh. I probably could have told you that before I did it. So as soon as I backed away a little bit, it was just fine. So I don't know if I would bring this out on stage with me, but definitely, like, from a safe guitar tech distance, if you're side stage about 10 or 15 feet or so, I think this thing could definitely handle the job. Okay, so enough testing. We've put this thing through its paces, and here's what I've come up with. Is it cool? Undoubtedly, yes. I love gadgets, I love technology, I love automation and removing the chances of human error, and this thing definitely does all of that. It's a tuner, and it tunes well. So, having said all of that, would I use the Roadie Bass Tuner every time I tune my bass? Well, no. I mean, there's definitely a time and a place for it, but not every single time. Imagine you're in the studio and you're tracking bass and you want to make sure your bass is perfectly in tune without any chances of error. Well, this thing will do it, right? As long as the strings are steel or nickel. Imagine being a guitar tech and needing to change strings on 5 or 10 instruments or more. Now we're talking about time saving. But I couldn't imagine taking this thing on stage with me and using it to tune in between songs or even during songs if my bass accidentally gets knocked out of tune somehow. A stomp box tuner would be much more effective in that scenario. Is it easy to use? Yeah, it's basically idiot proof. In fact, I don't even know why they gave you an instruction manual with it. But if you want to dive in a little bit deeper, there's actually an app that you can download that lets you get into altered tunings, sweetened tunings, and all sorts of other things. So it can get more complicated, but surface level, turn it on, put it on your bass, strike a string. That's pretty much as hard as it gets. And lastly, are there any drawbacks to using the Roadie Bass Tuner? And honestly, I can't really think of any, beyond the normal ones like battery life. Okay, so you got to keep this thing charged. What if it dies on you at the gig? Now you got to remember to bring the extra cable, and it's a USB-C cable, but then it goes into one of those USB plugs, and you got to have one of those. Make sure they're in your gig bag. Make sure you take them with you. So again, I mean, that's true for anything that's in your signal chain, anything that you bring to the gig, but it's just one more thing to keep track of, one more thing to maintain, one more thing to worry about. So that's it for today. Be sure to check out roadietuner.com where you can learn more about this thing or pick one up for yourself. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up down below and maybe even click on that subscribe button and you'll see more great videos just like this one. And also be sure to check out my weekly podcast called The Bassist Podcast. You can find
Now
it
playing the Bassist podcast.
Oh, wait, no, Google. I didn't say to start playing.
I'm replacing all of your videos with dubstep tutorials.
You son of a bitch. I'm Jamie Lewis, and thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time here at thebassist.net. Hey, if you like what I do, please click on the subscribe button right here. And if you really like what I do, then click over here to see how affordable it is to join me at thebassist.net. But if you just want the free stuff, then click here to check out whatever YouTube's sophisticated robots think you should watch next. I'm sure they know what's best for you.